Welcome back, Red Spotters. This is the Red Spotlight Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host, Alexis Soto, and I'm joined by David Francisco. And maybe in the future, who knows, maybe somebody else will appear on this podcast. We'll see how things plan out. Fingers crossed, we'll see. This is our final podcast here in anticipation of the Academy Awards, and we're going to actually talk about that at the top here, what we feel are predictions. Spoiler, it's not that interesting. Just to tell you right now, it's so not that interesting. And then whatever else you want to discuss here on Red Spotlight number 400. And dear God, what number is it? 477. You lose track after 400 episodes, apparently. Of course, the show that brings you everything coming out of the world of movies and more. David, how are you doing this week? Still basking in the glow of Dune?
Oh, for sure. And it just gets better and better as I keep reading this book, dude.
I'm sure it does.
I got in the moment where Jessica and Stilgar were talking to each other. Not in the movie, but like it was just this conversation between the two as like leaders in a sense, especially Jessica since the Duke's death and everything. And so she's just trying to like investigate the guy. It's like, okay, is he like a crazy leader? Like what kind of leader is he and all that? But she's kind of like, the more they talk, she's kind of like, she really like respects him in a sense. She's kind of like, whoa, you're like, you know how to calculate this situation like and all that and everything. And so they almost kind of like, it almost kind of led to like this really cool partnership between the two of them, but it's still on like the beginning stages of it. So
That is fascinating because I think and we had a review last week on the show, and by the way, stay tuned, you might hear even more of Dune in the weeks to come for sure. But you know, we kind of said a lot of the similar things that people have been saying online and everything, but I do want to stress that among the many things that people are praising Dune Part 2 for, Rebecca Ferguson and Javier Bardem are two of them. And I think it just now occurred to me, maybe they have one or two interactions in the film, like actually like they say words to each other, but independently on their own. I mean, of course, they're working toward the same cause. On their own, they delivered amazing performances. And you just saying that kind of made me think, I kind of would have wanted more of those two interacting with each other in the movie.
For sure.
It really is a shame, though, that Denis Villeneuve does not believe in deleted scenes. Because I think, and honestly, I got to say, that might be one thing that rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
Because what's come to light this last weekend, that there are some actors who filmed a number of things for this film, but were all cut. And because Denis will not budge on deleted scenes or whatever, his particular stance on them, we're never going to see them. Like the Mentat for the Atreides family lived, and he was forced to become the Mentat for the Harkonnen family. And he filmed several scenes with Austin Butler. He talked about them over the weekend. But as we mentioned last, I think, I talked about it with Peter off air, and I talked to him like, where was he? And he was like, well, in the book, he's in it, but in the film, he's just
gone.
No one even mentioned him. So it's like, I guess he just assumed that he was killed off screen when the Harkonnens invaded in the first part. But evidently he lived, and there was this whole other thing that was happening off screen, which, to be fair, I guess when you think more about the events that happened in the film, there kind of have to be a lot of things that happen off screen. So I guess here's one thing I want to amend from last week. I know I kind of asked everybody to go around and like, lay down what they were things that they thought were legitimate things to criticize or maybe even nitpick, which is on a far, lesser level. I think one of the things that you said was that you did feel the length. And I think that the more I think about it, I don't know, because I liked it so much and because of how much more I know that was cut, left on the cutting room floor, as it were, I'm like, would it really have killed us to have 15 more minutes to make it a 3-hour experience? It's not like we haven't been there before with Oppenheimer, with Avengers Endgame, or James Cameron's Avatar films. Like, we've been there a number of times. Would it really have killed it that much to just give us 15 more minutes?
Yeah, or just like the whole deleted scene stuff. I mean, I literally saw the entire trilogy of Lord of the Rings. That's 12 hours, like
you did do that, didn't you, earlier this year? I know Peter had expressed some interest, but of course, that doesn't go anywhere when he's literally trying to escape the mental institute that he works at. So it was a non-starter. But I did see that in the beginning of the year that they were doing those, not just the trilogy, but the extended versions of the trilogy, which you said was 12 hours in length.
Yeah, it's pretty much 12 hours in length.
Wow.
So, like, people, if they like the movie, they'll go, And so I think with Villeneuve, like, I think it's a weird idea to just the whole no such thing as deleted scenes. It's like, no, it's okay to like have them.
Yeah.
Put them as extensions and all that. I mean, I know people are getting annoyed with fucking Snyder doing his extended versions.
That's a different situation, man. You know what? People have, look, I understand the annoyance, but look, I think in large part that fucking whole episode has ruined has ruined the name of extended cuts or director's cuts or even deleted scenes. And I fucking hate that. But let's be fair here. It's not just the Snyder situation. It's also the MCU, in the fact that because the MCU is the MCU and Kevin Feige is so insistent on the theatrical versions being the definitive cinematic versions, at no point did he ever allow for any kind of director's cuts or extended cuts to be available of those films, which those films belong in a genre, comic book, fantasy, sci-fi, whatever, which is literally made for stuff like that, to have director's cuts or extended cuts or deleted scenes. I mean, they did have a few deleted scenes, but still, the point there being that mixed with this whole cult of the Snyder Cut situation has really created a bad look and a bad name for all this other stuff. And so because of that, there's been, and then that's not even getting to the advent of streamers that were doing this for the pure notion that somehow would end up getting them more subscribers. I mean, at some point we are supposed to get a 4-hour version of Ridley Scott's Napoleon. I know David Ayer is still begging everybody he has an interview with that WB allows him to release his cut of whatever Suicide Squad movie he made. And then even then, still, fucking Zack Snyder is going to release a 4-hour version of Rebel Moon Part 1, supposedly also on Netflix later on this year. Zack Snyder, I got to say, we have been very hot and cold on him on this show throughout the years. I think one of the things that really rubbed me the wrong way a few weeks ago when we're discussing Chris Stuckman and his idea of like not bashing filmmakers, I'm sorry, but are we just supposed to ignore the bad crap, especially when that bad crap ends up giving us even worse crap like Madam Web? This doesn't all happen in a vacuum. So I feel like, yeah, those of us who called out how terrible Zack Snyder's films were should it not only have been allowed to, but we needed to because if we didn't have that outlet, what? We're just supposed to pretend that it was good or just not talk about it? I don't see how that's helpful at all. But the thing about Snyder is we understand that it was a personal thing that happened with him and the loss of his daughter. And, when it was first announced, we all were like in his corner, like, you know what, good for you. Get this emotional thing out there. Get this work out of you. Good for you. It's a win. But then, as usual, his cultists made it into an ugly thing, and then he got high on it by like having the mentality that he was bulletproof, and so now he's making projects with Netflix that have extended cuts and all this other stuff, and it's like he doesn't care anymore about like appeasing anybody else but his own fan base. So, like, as a result of all of that ego mania, one of the things that people have, they roll their eyes at these days is, oh, you want a director's cut? Like that was a standard. That happened. That literally, it's the same thing. Like people who complain about James Gunn putting his friends in his movies. He is not even the first by a long stretch director to do that. How many movies has Scorsese made with De Niro? 10, as a matter of fact.
I feel like he's been to all of them, like, at this point, It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like every director you can think of who has, like, is of the stature of a Nolan or a Spielberg or a Miyazaki, not only do they work with the same actors, they work with their same team. Spielberg, I mean, aside from maybe 2 or 3 of his films, Williams scored all of his movies.
Mm-hmm.
The same with Scorsese. Scorsese has had the same editor, Thelma Schoonmaker. She's edited all of his films, literally all of his movies. And like, how many decades of movie making has Scorsese been a part of? Like, you work with the people who you work well with. And so these people who are, again, this is the pain. And this is also sometimes why we try not to talk about these things anymore on the show, because it's just a stupid conversation. Let's just be real. It's a stupid conversation, this whole thing that we're having. And that's why we try not to have so much of a focus on it, because we used to, and now it's a whole different thing. The point is, Denis also unfortunately got gotcha'd in a way, because look, the press in the film media space, dude, like, they're among the most desperate journalists out there for some kind of headline. Look, that's their profession. I get it. But it's like, even this week, they gotcha'd Denis Villeneuve by asking him about like dialogue in a movie. And then Denis was like, well, I don't care much for dialogue. I think if it were up to me, I wouldn't have any dialogue in a movie. And then that apparently got people. That alone, this is how it works these days. That alone was enough ammunition for a film Twitter discourse for days on end about like, well, what does he mean? Of course, movies have to have dialogue. Or, well, he's right. Sometimes films have too much dialogue. And it's just like everything else, this space is just fundamentally broken, and we're focusing and over-focusing on the wrong things. What we should be discussing right now is putting pressure on him to fucking those deleted scenes so we can see them.
Mm-hmm.
Or even release can you imagine? Dune 1 and 2 are perfect for extended cuts.
For sure.
Release them. I don't understand this mentality of not releasing it.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you want the definitive version of it being the theatrical version. We've gone through decades of films that didn't care about that. I mean, Ridley Scott, Jesus Christ, had like 17 different cuts of Blade Runner. I lost count. I mean, there's the first cut, the third, the final cut. Like, Ridley Scott also has his career is riddled with different cuts of various films that he's made. The point is, I don't even know what the point was anymore. I just get so animated at this point. Dune is great, and I think we should be in a culture that's encouraging of directors trying to release different versions of the film. Remember, we used to have movies that on a DVD, they would release an alternate ending or something. That used to be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've become so obsessed with the canon of it all. Not just for the key franchises like Star Wars or Marvel or DC, but just for anything. We become so obsessed with canon that people are like, well, we can't allow that because it's going to make us look bad. And it's just like, again, one of the sneaky things that I think Across the Spider-Verse really spoke to in its film was the idea of basically, without them even realizing, attacking all those nerds out there that are like, but the canon, because, embedded in the DNA of the story was Miguel O'Hara's insistence on you can't break the canon.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, it's not appreciated enough how clever it was that Lord and Miller and all their directors tied in the idea of how hated Miles was as a character when he was first introduced, and embed that into the DNA of the storytelling with Miguel hating Miles so much as a little bit of a subtle fuck you to those people. That movie doesn't get enough credit for literally, even though I'm talking about one of the more successful films of the year, it might even win an Academy Award this weekend, it's still not as appreciated because, for instance, is it nominated for Best Picture? No. So that alone should tell you how underappreciated it is. But it does get you thinking, David. I know we're already early on in the year 2024. And remember, I started off my review last week saying that basically wishing good luck to any movie that came out after this that would come anywhere near topping it. And I have noticed some conversations happening on film Twitter that are actually kind of interesting. And they're even more interesting now because there has been something of a shift, especially these last 2 years, when we talk about not only the kind of movies that end up getting nominated for Best Picture, but also, especially, the ones that win. Something kind of weird has taken shape these last 2 years, in that the films that eventually have won or will win, in the case of Oppenheimer, which it will win, either by the time this is uploaded or the next day, Best Picture at the Academy Awards. These last 2 years, Everything Everywhere and Oppenheimer are Best Picture winners and to be winner. Were not released in the traditional Oscar awards season space calendar, which is September, October, November, December. Those films came out early in the year. Now, with the case of Oppenheimer, it was in the middle of the year, but still way earlier than the usual awards season. Everything Everywhere, I believe, came out in March, April.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's not even just those films. I mean, Barbie this year, Elvis last year, Top Gun Maverick also. So lately, I don't know if you can credit perhaps a weaker Oscar season these last 2 years, although there have been some exceptional films. Mm-hmm. But still, these last 2 years, nominees for Best Picture have included films that have come out well before the season actually takes place. So with that being, to set the table, there are people who are seriously talking about how many things we can start predicting as far as nominations for Dune Part 2. Also, when you take into consideration, Dune also has the benefit of having its first film not only nominated for what? I think Dune got nominated for 10 Oscars, and I think it won 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. So it has that added benefit of already being established with these people and already kind of being loved by these people. So I know that we're a little less than a week out from the 2024 Academy Awards, but thinking about the 2025 Academy Awards also, without even knowing, again, let's just be clear. It's a given. We don't even know what the fuck else is going to come out this year. We haven't seen. The only new 2024 release I've seen this year is Dune Part 2. Everything else has just been catching up on 23 releases that I hadn't seen in the traditional 23 calendar year. So again, we know this is very early to be thinking or talking about this, but we know the strength of this film. We believe that this film not only will be among the best of the year, but it's so much of a slam dunk. It's going to be hard. I think all of us are on the same page here. It's going to be hard to envision a film that comes close to topping this for us. So I'm curious to see where your mind is at. I'm not sure if you were aware that such conversations were happening in the first place, but what do you think? I think it's pretty clear. I can just surmise from your thoughts that you shared last week that you think obviously Dune Part 2 is of the caliber to be in the conversation. That's a given. But thinking, and again, you don't have to say it, just say it again. We don't know what's coming out later this year, so there's also that caveat. But do you think Dune Part 2, just for a start, is going to be able to match the 10 nominations that Dune Part 1 received? Could it even exceed that? Because some people are saying, well, since this is universally better, I think for the most part, people think that Part 2 is better than Part 1. And considering the power of some of the actors, do you think perhaps, unlike Part 1, Part 2 might be able to get some of its actors nominated for an acting category? David.
Okay, I was actually going to ask if any of the actors got nominated, but if they didn't, I think Timothy could have a shot. I was thinking about it, like, I don't know if like any of them really had that much of a standout moment, but I mean, Timothy, that moment towards the end when he gets everyone together, I was kind of like, but that's really cool though, like the way he just kind of grabs everyone. I don't know, it could happen. I think just out of everyone, I think for him, he should be the one to be nominated. For everything else though, cinematography, I mean, I can't remember the guy's name who was the cinematographer for that.
Greg Fraser.
Greg Fraser.
Greg Fraser, who was criminally snubbed last year for the Batman, who, by the way, Roger Deakins, the legendary Roger Deakins, said flat out that was the best cinematography of any movie that year. The Academy was like too lame to not even nominate it. But Greg Fraser did win 2 years ago for, guess what? Dune Part 1.
Oh my god. Well, yeah, he deserves it again for this one.
Yeah.
Dude, like, what the hell? Like, what is he seeing that we just don't? That he just makes beautiful fucking movies? Like, what the hell? Especially with the Batman too. Like, it just still shocks me. Like, this was a superhero. This was a Batman movie. Like, what the hell?
I know.
Yeah, and I mean, just for everything else, VFX, I can see it for score too, for sure. Especially of the, I don't know what's it called, but like, I mean,
especially because, let's be real here, but it's funny because Dune Part 1 already won those categories you mentioned. It won score, it won visual effects. They deserve it again because it's that good. And I kind of think that the score for Dune Part 2 is kind of better.
I think so too. Like, all I remember is just like the parts of the, like, I guess Arrakis theme or something like that. But that's not like I noticed a lot more. The main thing,
yes,
Paul and Chani and everything. Man. And then I know for sure, like, when you see the Harkonnen planet or something like that, that was definitely stand out for me. I mean, I don't know if, what else. I mean, VFX. The only big VFX thing I can think of right now that's going to come out this year is Deadpool, but
yeah, but it's also Marvel Studios, and you never know quite sure how that's gonna pan out. And I don't anticipate VFX being the strong suit of any film associated with Marvel Studios these days, unfortunately. So I'm not. And then also, I think the Academy, even more so, sensing how weak Marvel has been, is just doubling down on their anti-Marvel attitude. And we didn't talk about it as much, but it took hold this year. While Guardians did get a nomination for VFX, as it should, because that was one of the rare MCU films that had great VFX. People were stunned that they did not nominate the Academy Guardians 3 for hair and makeup, even though Guardians 3 had the single most use of prosthetics in any other film in history. And that tells you, oh, they see Marvel. Nope.
Yeah.
Not going to do it. Even though I think that category did award Greg Nicotero his work on Suicide Squad back in 2016.
Yeah. Over Star Trek Beyond, I think it was.
Oh yeah, that was much better.
Sure.
I mean, Star Trek Beyond was much better movie too.
No, yeah, for sure. No, but I remember like seeing like just this one behind the scenes clip of this like person wearing this giant head and everything, like kind of twirls on it, and I'm like, Suicide Squad won over that?
Yeah,
like,
I know. I will say though, I wasn't too mad at it because I was at that point I was a fan of The Walking Dead, and Greg Nicotero's work on The Walking Dead is pretty great. So, and Nicotero is also a veteran in this industry, so I was happy that he has an Academy Award. So there's that. But still, that was one of those wins where I was like, okay, we could be here all day and night with things that didn't win, or also things that didn't get nominated. I will say this: I have been seeing more and more evidence to suggest you and I were entirely in the right with the outrage that for whatever reason, not a single song from Wonka was considered for Best Original Song.
Oh my God.
And the one, even though I think you have a preference toward A World of Your Own, I've been seeing a lot of people just like humming and You've Never Had Chocolate Like This. It just goes to show you one of those freaking songs should have been nominated, and all those assholes that said that nothing in that film had a memorable piece of music, you were wrong. You were wrong.
Yeah.
Just flat out. But back to Dune. Yeah, I think it can win all those things again for sure. But I think here's where it gets tricky in the categories where it wasn't nominated previously, acting. But here's the other one. Given the fact that in recent years, even this year, The director's branch has not gone for directors of big budget films. Let me recap the people who missed out on a nomination in recent years for director. Greta Gerwig in Barbie. That ended up being a huge movie. Joseph Kosinski for Top Gun Maverick. Didn't get anywhere in there. Even though Black Panther is not a film I would consider to be in the conversation, just based on my preference alone, but the fact that it was a big film and it did get a lot of nominations and it ended up winning a few Oscars. Ryan Coogler not getting in there. Also, James Cameron didn't get a nomination for The Way of Water. But you know who else did not? Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 1. So this branch has had a difficult time of it lately, recognizing any kind of big movie. Big, and I mean like big blockbuster or big, widely seen popular film of that size. There are exceptions, of course, but that has been the rule lately. However, here we have Dune Part 2. Are they going to nominate him this time to make up for what happened, or are they going to screw him over again? What do you think?
I think he deserves it. I mean, doing a Part 1 and 2, that's like just both great fucking films. Like, I don't see why not. I don't understand it. I would not understand it.
I can already see a year from now, people are going to be talking about, well, maybe they're going to wait for Dune Messiah to nominate him. I don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah.
Do it now. I mean, whenever the voting happens in a year from now. But yeah, then the acting. We mentioned Timmy. I think he should seriously be considered because I think that this is a role that people are going to remember for sure. But also I believe he already has the benefit of being nominated before. I believe he was nominated in that category for lead actor for Call Me by Your Name. He ended up not winning, which is a shame because he should have that year probably. But you also have former nominee Austin Butler in Dune Part 2 as well. He's commanding a lot of attention. I wouldn't be surprised. Again, it's a lot easier to get nominated if you've been nominated before. So they already like you. So we'll see where that conversation goes. Other people to mention, Javier Bardem and Rebecca Ferguson. I don't know if they would be nominated, only because those. To be fair, I think Javier did get nominated recently for being in the Ricardos. For being the Ricardos. I don't know I don't think Ferguson has ever been nominated. That's a crying shame. We need to fix that with this movie, ideally anyway. I don't know if that'll happen. But suffice to say, I would say that the film is definitely strong, that like Oppenheimer, we can have, remember when Oppenheimer came out, we were already having conversations about all the things that it would be nominated for and all the things that it would win, because we just knew it's that strong. But we also know that the Academy has had a predilection for liking that kind of stuff in the past. And in this case, Dune, they already gave Dune so many Oscars. There's a good chance it's going to happen again. But I will say, it might have made things more interesting, but also, again, I think the further removed we are from the strikes, it really did work out in Dune's favor to not come out last October for a lot of reasons. Box office wise, over $80 million at the domestic box office, doubling what the first one did. Mind you, of course, the first one made so little, which at the time we were celebrating because that was the second year of the pandemic. It was real bleak. Nothing was making money. It also ended up being a WB film, which meant that it was released on HBO Max on the same day. So a lot of caveats there, but I think Dune Part 1 ended up benefiting from lowered expectations. The part that it got greenlit for a Part 2. And then, of course, worldwide, it ended up getting over 180 million. Some projections are having it. It's hard to know for sure. We'll see what the legs that it'll have. But I think it was impressive that 48% of its box office came from premium screens. A big part of that means the IMAX screens as well, which there aren't as many as you would think either. So it brings up a lot of different things. I would hope that the film, at the end of the day, is going to hit anywhere between $500 million to $700 million. And while that might not sound like a lot, it is a lot, especially compared to the first one. So fingers crossed that it gets there, of course, and it for sure deserves it. But you know where it also lucked out is, we're talking about Dune in the context of next year's Academy Awards. Imagine if Dune had come out in the middle of this season. Yeah. I don't know.
It would have made it more interesting, at least.
That's the thing, right? It's like it's kind of a give and take. Like, I've been bitching for weeks now. Literally, it's been 2 months since the Golden Globes, mind you, and we're only just barely getting to the Oscars. But the point there being is, I had been bitching for a while now how boring this race had become, and this would make it more interesting for sure. But it also wouldn't win much of anything, because of what it would be up against. That's the thing.
I mean, I think we would have won for VFX. I think for sure.
Maybe.
I don't think it would have won for director. I still think I gotta give that to Nolan still, honestly.
Probably, yeah. I don't think that would. I don't think anything was changing that, honestly.
Mm-hmm. And cinematography, I think he still win it. I think he should always get an award.
Yeah,
honestly,
for sure.
for any movie he does. Best film though, that would be just the trickiest one. I think I would choose Killer still.
Mm-hmm.
If it's between Nolan's like Oppenheimer, Killers, and Dune, I think I would choose Killers for best film.
Right. Personally, although that was never going to happen anyway, apparently, when it came to the awards conversation is concerned. So there's that conversation. If you end up speaking with Peter, ask him and see what he thinks. That'll be a funny exchange to see. I do want to get to what we think are ultimately going to win the Oscars, and I already gave it away at the top. It's not that interesting. I do have the list here. You can download this from Letterboxd, and it has all the categories on here, and you can make your bets and see. We did this last year, I think, Peter and I, to see what's going to win. But we already know what the nominees are. I'm not going to go through everything, but I have Oppenheimer winning 9 awards. That sounds like a lot, but I honestly don't know why it wouldn't, considering how out in front it is out of everyone. I don't even know if there's anyone that comes close to performing how well Oppenheimer has done, basically. The 9 that I have it winning for are adapted screenplay, sound design, director, film editing, original score, best picture, obviously, cinematography, and then actor in a supporting role for RDJ and actor in the leading role for Cillian Murphy. I know not everyone, I don't think, is going to go as high as 9. I would go no lower than 7. And remember that last year, Everything Everywhere All at Once won 7 Oscars. Wait, let me see. Did it win 7 or did A24 win 7? Let me see. Everything Everyone won director, screenplay, picture, Michelle Yeoh, editing, Ke Huy Quan. Did it win a 7th? Did it? I don't think it did. Let's just say 6. It won 6, and I think with A24. But then A24 ended up winning for. Oh no, it did win 7. Jamie Lee Curtis was the 7th one for supporting actress. Okay, so yeah, Everything Everywhere did win 7, and I think I was thinking A24 with The Whale. It won actor and then makeup. So that was 9 overall. But what a year. But Everything Everywhere did win 7. So look, and that's a film that's not up the Academy's alley. Oppenheimer always was that movie. I think it'll win no fewer than 7. And right now, I just told you, I think it's going to win 9. I just don't know who comes close in any of those categories.
Mm-hmm.
So, David?
And I agree. It's kind of unfair, honestly, in this sense. But that's at the same time, he does deserve it. Like, he made a great film. Gosh darn it.
It's a great film. It's one of my favorites for sure. That being said, I have always been more of a person that likes to spread the wealth around. Mm-hmm. And look, there are plenty of other movies that came out this year that we should talk about, like Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, Flower Moon, Past Lives, The Zone of Interest, Poor Things. Those are all great movies, and yet I think most of them are not going to win a single thing.
Yeah. I want to also just give Oppenheimer just best picture and best director. That's it. Let everyone else win something. For sure, Past Lives for, I don't know, cinematography maybe. Or
okay. The only one that has some kind of suspense is actress in a leading role. Up until a few weeks ago, everyone was like, okay, Emma Stone seems to have this thing put away. This race is going to come down to how much of a lead Emma Stone had versus how many people in the Academy were holding their ballots until after SAG picked Lily Gladstone instead, and then are gonna jump on that bandwagon. That's what this is gonna come down to, ultimately. Historically, the actors have so much sway because obviously these are their categories. So statistically, who's got the better chance? Lily Gladstone. Can Emma still pull it out? Yeah, of course she can. She won the Golden Globe, the Critics' Choice, and the BAFTA. That's not nothing. And then Lily did end up losing a few of those. She did not get nominated at BAFTA. So and again, if we're going to say that BAFTA has a lot of carryover with the Academy, that's going to end up hurting her. And in a close race like this, if you lose out on a few votes, that's going to be enough to lose out on the race. It's going to be interesting to see what this comes down to, because the actors don't give a fuck. Like, if they like you, it doesn't matter what else is going on in the race, they'll vote for you. But as I mentioned, for many weeks now, the Academy is made up of a lot of fickle voters that have their own vendettas and they have their own quirks. And you think that there aren't enough people in the Academy who are like, Lily, you are not lead. You are supporting. I'm not voting for you here. I'm sure there are plenty of those people. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be a big number of them. I'm not saying that that's most of them. It just has to be enough to keep her from getting the win. So be on the lookout for that. But I'm going to say Lily Gladstone only because SAG. SAG is really important. The actor's endorsement is really important. That usually puts people over the top. There have been some people who are saying, well, what if it's a close race and then somebody else ends up winning? Like Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall. Interesting. I don't know how likely that is, but that's an interesting choice. Actors in a supporting role, the same one that's been winning all the other ones, Devine Joy Randolph. Again, she's only winning because Gladstone was not in this category. Otherwise, Gladstone would have already been sweeping all these awards. So it's funny how that ended up working out. Here, one of the other interesting races, although it also just seems to have a conclusion already written up for it. Animated film, we've been talking about it all season long, Spider-Verse or Boy and the Heron. I've always felt no matter where Boy and the Heron would win, when it came down to the Oscars, I tend to remember that it's not just the animator guild people who are voting on this category. Every member of the Academy is voting on every category. So you're going to have a lot of people who are normie-er and a lot of people who haven't seen the Japanese animated film, even if it is made by Hayao Miyazaki. I would wager most people would see the American animated film that grossed over $600 million worldwide. That has it as kind of an edge. So, and you notice I'm not talking about quality, because that really doesn't have much of a relevancy when it comes to these decisions, as you can see, for these people. So I'm just going to go based on like which one is known more of. And I think Spider-Verse is going to have that. If it does win, Spider-Verse will be the second franchise in history in this category to win more than one Academy Awards. The previous one is Toy Story. It would be Spider-Man. I'm going to go with Spider-Man. And I'm not mad at it because I love that film. I just watched it again. I mentioned on this show a few weeks ago, and it is just as great, if not better, than it was a little less than a year ago. That film, it is a crime how that wasn't at all considered or nominated for Best Picture anywhere from these people. And I think this one really is the film that breaks the camel's back here, because like, you have just shown your cards. Oh, you fucking hate animation then, right? You don't take it seriously, because if a film like this can't get nominated for Best Picture, what will? That's the question I ask. David, are you with me on this one? Do you think Spider-Man's got this?
I think so. I mean, based on what you're saying, basically, like, people are gonna just stick with the American movie or something like that. I would say yes. But I mean, I never know.
There's a chance Miyazaki can win.
Yeah, there's a chance.
Not a chance.
Yeah, there's a chance Miyazaki can win, just because it's also one of the most popular movies being talked about, at least for
it already won. It won at the Golden Globes and it won at BAFTA. So I think what you've seen is, here's the thing: BAFTA and Globes are much more international bodies. So in the international bodies, they preferred Boy and the Heron. But in the more domestic American bodies, they voted Spider-Man. So my thinking is most of the Academy voters are American. So I'm going, that's where my head is at.
Yeah. No, yeah, I get you. But I mean, then yeah, I mean, by that logic, I would say yeah, Spider-Verse has the win, probably.
Okay. Costumes, Barbie.
Yeah.
Or Poor Things. Poor Things could do it, but I would think Barbie has a better chance of doing it. Makeup, I think Maestro. Only because of the nose. they love that kind of shit, man. Like they love that kind of stunt stuff. So
okay.
International feature film. Oh God. Oh my goodness. There's so many good movies here. I would give my left arm to give Perfect Days the award for international film, which I just purchased, by the way, on Vudu. It just became available digitally this week. If you haven't seen that film, anybody who is listening, go and watch it, because I keep seeing reactions of people being so surprised by that kind of movie. And I want to remind you, this is not a film where there's a lot of talking. This is a film that is captivating in ways that will surprise you. And it's very refreshing and very soul nourishing. And so much of you getting to know who the main character is not by him saying anything. It's by paying attention to his facial expressions. That is real acting right there, in ways that you can't really be easily quantified or parallel to anything else that you can see in this year. Wim Wenders did an amazing job with that film. And Koji Hakusho, great performance there. I want to discuss that film more as more of our team sees it later on. But because Anatomy is not nominated here, Zone of Interest. Only because that just seems obvious. Zone of Interest.
Yeah.
Documentary, short. I literally, some of these just go with the title. One of them has book banning. That's a popular hot buzz term. There it is. Documentary feature film, the Ukraine story, which is 20 Days of Mariupol. That one's got it. Song, Billie Eilish. That's it. Production design, Barbie. Poor things could win here, but I would say Barbie. Short film, animated film, War is Over. Short film live action, the Wes Anderson one, even though I kind of hated it, but whatever. Visual effects is the one that's interesting here. Real quick, writing for original screenplay. I'm gonna put Anatomy of the Fall because of how popular it is, and this is the only thing that's gonna win. It looks like. Let me go back to visual effects. The creator or Godzilla? I know for me, I would pick Godzilla. Is the Academy gonna go for Godzilla?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think honestly, for me, I'll pick creator.
Yeah. I did predict creator only because of I'm not talking about like what I prefer, just by what I think the Academy would most likely go for, the creator. And the creator has amazing visual effects.
For sure.
Although I do prefer Godzilla. But I think I prefer Godzilla overall as a movie.
Yeah,
that's
same.
Just a thing.
For sure. I think it deserves far more awards than it has. But like, I mean, it just can't choose creator because it is the better. It does have better visual effects in the end, I think. So.
And that's it. So we'll see what it looks like. I know that the show, as a show itself, I'm already preparing for the worst because they're doing this thing where they're gonna have like 5 actors present. Like, for example, let's say the first award, Best Supporting Actor. They're gonna have 5 people introduce all 5 nominees, and it's gonna take 10 minutes just for one category. Go on YouTube and look up 2008 and 2009 Academy Awards. They did this already. It literally took 10 minutes for everyone to say something and then actually present the actual fucking award. I don't know why they're doing this, but that's basically what 4 times 10. That's 40 minutes plus of the broadcast being devoted. Which I would prefer that over bits. If this means not doing any kind of lame bits, which I find that hard to believe. But if they are, I welcome it. If not, you're guaranteed of a 4-hour show. So already, I'm not enthused about that. Also, we have to get through 5 musical performances. Yes, Ryan Gosling agreed to do I'm Just Ken, but we also got to listen to a song from Flamin' Hot, American Symphony, and then waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
And these are not songs anybody wants to see me performed, much less live. So that's going to eat up a lot of time. Yeah, I don't, yeah, whatever. We'll see how things go. But I mean, again, this is going to be less of an award show and more of a coronation ceremony for Nolan. Before I go here, David, I wanted to ask you, how are you coming along with your top 10 lists? And again, for our listeners and viewers on this show, we have a long standard tradition of not doing a top 10 show at the end of the year where everybody else does it, because we don't have access to all those films, and we got to wait weeks into the new year to find out where we can see, how we can see these films. So historically speaking, for us, we don't do this show until March. Usually these last few years, it's been March. It may be April this year. I know we'll know better when I get confirmation from everybody who's going to be on it. I haven't had that yet. So this is my opportunity to ask David how he feels. And I have to also remind everyone, I need to put you all on blast. Alexis and Peter and Kyle and you, David, who are all of our members here on our show, on our team. Gotta remind you guys, hey, we now as a group have access to films like Perfect Days, Anatomy of a Fall, Killers of the Flower Moon, which I believe we've all already seen.
Yeah.
The Color Purple, Wonka, Poor Things. All of Us Strangers is on Hulu now. So it's like all of the films that all of us had not been able to see. I know some of us have seen some of those. The point there being, it's readily available. There is no fucking excuse to not see them now that they're all there. So it's up to you to care enough to press play on the damn things. I think all of those films are definitely something to consider before you make a top 10. I, of course, have said that my top 10 is made as we go along. I will say I'm having a little bit of a difficulty making up who is going to hold the number 10 spot. And I recognize, right? Okay, you have that too. This may delve into spoilers for it. It's just one spot. So I want to have this conversation with you because, and I don't think we're talking about this, that we have the same movies in mind, but I think I'm circling between 4 or 5 movies that I don't know which one, because they're all kind of at the same level for me, but I don't know which one I want. I have number 1 through 9 locked. I'm not moving that. It's that last spot that I'm having a hard time with. And you having that issue as well?
Yeah.
Did you want to reveal which ones they are?
The number 10, I have the Creed 3, actually.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. But in
Interesting.
place of it is Boy and the Heron and Saltburn so far. So it's like
none of those movies are the ones that are like competing for my number 10. I'll tell you the ones that are competing: All of Us Strangers, Godzilla -1.
Really?
I know you think that'd be a cinch, but I only saw it the one time, so I want to see it again. Anatomy of a Fall, Wonka, and Barbie.
Wow.
So I mean, all of those films are like vying for it. Yes.
I have Wonka on number 12, like on my list and everything. So it is kind of close, but I don't think it's going to make it in my top 10 for sure. That's the thing.
Wonka has been like right outside of it. So is Barbie, and I got a feeling it's going to come down between those two, and I don't know ultimately. I don't know if this is going to give it away. I'm curious to see how many of us actually have Barbie in the top 10.
I don't.
You don't?
Nope.
Okay. Do you see? That's why I'm asking. Because if you don't have Barbie, and if I don't have Barbie, if Peter doesn't have Barbie, I don't know if Kyle's going to have Barbie.
Chances are, Ale, I could see it with her.
Well, that's the thing. Is it gonna be a good look that the only person in our group that has Barbie in the top 10 happens to be the only female in the group, while the rest of the males don't have it included?
I mean, I have a female-led movie in my top 10. I'll say no. I have 2 female-led movies on my top 10 at least. Not all.
No. It's well, I guess that's okay. That's a nice way to distract from that, but the thing is, it's because like Barbie is like the feminist movie of the year, and all of us gave it positive marks, and we all liked to loved it. I just think, like, to me right now, I'm currently leaning toward having that in my number 10 because of what an achievement it was, and then also what a unique experience it was, what a unique original experience it was. And again, we're talking about a movie based on a Barbie doll. And then how deep it ended up being and how many people it touched, like it's a cultural reset in a lot of ways. So I'll be honest, I'm having a hard time figuring out between that one, even though Wonka is so good. But then again, I need to rewatch Anatomy because that one was really good. And I got to rewatch Godzilla. And like part of me wants to put all of those in there, but there's not enough spots for it. And then I'm also of the mind where I know some things might change, but when we do the top 10 this year, we're not going to have a conversation on like honorable mentions. I think because I don't know the final count as in how many of us are actually going to be there, but it's going to be more than 3, I think, this year.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I think we just gotta jump straight into like what the 10 movies are. And at some point before, we should lay out what the honorable mentions were. Do you have movies that you liked last year that you already know are not going to be on your 10 that you want to throw out there as honorable mentions?
Oh yeah, I mean, Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, that's one of mine.
Yeah, Super Mario Brothers.
That's not one of mine.
Really?
No, that would be one of my dishonorable mentions. I think didn't I say? I know we also have a quick discussion like what were the worst movies you saw last year. My top 5: Super Mario Brothers,
Wow,
Little Mermaid, The Flash, Quantumania, and Rebel Moon. Those are my 5 dishonorable mentions. Sorry, go ahead.
All right, mine's that, but well, not Super Mario, but Indiana Jones. That's on my 5.
Oh, you're dishonorable?
Yeah, basically it was all the ones you mentioned except for Super Mario and just add-ons. Indiana Jones.
Look, I gotta be honest though. I think we're hating too much on Indiana Jones, and you gotta remember that I've been raging on the fact that it should not have been nominated for. Did it get in for visual effects? No, it did not. But it did get in for. But it did get in for score.
Yeah.
That being said, I've seen Indiana Jones 2 times. There's a lot of things wrong with it. And it ultimately ends up being a forgettable experience. I do grant you. But I think it is moderately enjoyable. I do have plans to see it at some point before we do this show, just to really confirm where I am at. But let me just give you a taste. Of 101 movies that I have logged in here for 23, Indiana is at 50. So it's not that low. Yeah, it's not that low at all. It's like it's literally at the midway point. But it's like I don't think of it that negatively, I'll say, because it may just be the Harrison Ford of it all. It may just be that I actually really like this franchise. That being said, it is the weakest one, I feel. But yeah, I got to make up my mind about ultimately if I feel the same way. I'm just operating under my memory here, obviously. But that's where it is right now. Let's remind us, 50 is not that high.
Yeah.
But it also isn't that low in comparison to yours. What other dishonorables do you have?
Dishonorables? Aquaman 65.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a dishonorable. It's funny because I put Aquaman at 49 from
oh my gosh.
The Lost Kingdom. I'm sorry, that one I just had too much fun with that movie. It was so stupid.
Well, my movie is at a 43. So that's how
okay.
That's how many I saw.
I see what you're okay.
I mean, it might be lower because of I have still missed a lot. Wish, The Marvels.
I didn't see Wish. Yeah. Is it out?
I don't think so yet.
It hasn't. It's not out, is it?
No, which is weird. I feel like it should have been out by now.
We need it. That should probably be our next commentary reaction.
Yeah, we've been thinking about that one for sure because you and I haven't seen it at all.
No, you have, and you have. I mean, I'll say this: The Marvels is my number 79. It's not, and that seems high, but I look, I was entertained.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta be honest, I was, even though there were things that pissed me off, and go back to our review. It's look, in the way that I had fun with it does not make it sound great. Like I've been saying, like to me, if this was on Disney Channel, it'd be a masterpiece. That's what I was comparing it to. But it is a train wreck of a movie. Mm-hmm. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination. But I was entertained.
No, yeah, same.
You know? So. But it is among the worst of the year, no doubt about that. Just I don't want to get people confused about that either. Any others? Dishonorables? Or honorables?
Honorable, yeah. What did I say? Dungeons and Dragons, Super Mario, Mission Impossible, and Guardians. Really.
Okay. My honorables. Let me see here. Megan, Creed 3, Monster, The Teacher's Lounge, El Conde, Mutant Mayhem, Nimona, Anyone But You, Blue Beetle, The Iron Claw, John Wick Chapter 4, Dungeons and Dragons, Elemental, No One Will Save You, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, The Holdovers, Skinamarink, The Zone of Interest, The Color Purple, Joyride, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, and No Hard Feelings. Those are all honorable mentions. Those are films that I really, really enjoyed. And again, some more than others. I would say that films that really kind of blew me away, again, in different ways. I think No Hard Feelings and Joyride are great fucking comedies. If you haven't seen them, go watch them. They're really good classic comedies in very different ways. In particular, I'll say that this No Hard Feelings is not as funny as Joyride, but No Hard Feelings has a fuzzy heart between the two characters that I really loved, and that kind of like got me more over. But Joyride is about these like 5 friends, and they go to China, and things just end up going haywire. It also, to me, is Stephanie Hsu, by the way, is in that movie. She's part of the ensemble. I highly, highly recommend Joyride. It's a classic, great, hilarious comedy. So yeah, those are all. I do have more films that I liked, like Passages and American Fiction, Fallen Leaves, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. So there's other movies there for sure, but yeah, that's where I'm at, and I guess where you are. So as far as what the top 10 pretends, we still got. I mean, evidently, I still got time to make up my mind, because I don't know how close the rest of our team is to doing it. But I just wanted to give people a bit of an update on you for that, especially considering that we're already this close. I mean, we're already here at the Academy Awards. You'd think that, because historically speaking, we wait like maybe 2 weeks after they air, and then we do our top 10 show. I don't know if that's happening. I got to convene with everybody and see where we are. I would love for Alexis to make a list, even though that makes for a longer show. But if she wants to participate, why not? Anyway, we're going to go ahead and end it off there.
Hello, everyone. This is the second half of the podcast that you are listening to now. First half was me and Alexis. We mostly gave our thoughts on our theories as to what's going to happen with the Oscars and all that, and just kind of other bullshit. But yeah, on this half, it is just basically going to be Peter's thoughts on Dune Part 2. Peter, how are you doing?
I gotta say, as if you have any, I don't know, if you've been with this channel for a while, you know, it started out as Kyle Lear, the hostess with the mostest, and Mr. Alexis Soto very subtly basically stole the channel from him. And I gotta say, you know, I'm loving this poetry of you slowly taking the channel from Mr. Alexis Soto under his nose without him noticing it. So by the time it happens, it's too late and he can't really do anything about it. So I just want to say kudos to that.
It's been centuries in the making. Now, like the Bene Gesserit.
Like the Bene Gesserit. Yes. You have planted the seeds for generations.
Exactly. Yeah.
The plan bears fruit.
But yeah, we both saw Dune 2, and Dune. I already gave my thoughts on it last episode. I
heard you didn't like it that much. What happened? What's going on?
I mean, it's the worst movie of the year. Like Bene Gesserit's like, what the fuck is that? You know, Faye, Rafa, too many weird names. It just doesn't make any sense.
A lot of woke names, huh?
Woke names, yes. No, I absolutely loved it. It is, I mean, so far best movie of the year, but I mean, there hasn't been that many good movies come out yet. So, but yeah, I mean, you just go off. Okay. What did you think of the movie?
Dune Part 2. First of all, I wanna come in and just throw down the gauntlet. I was the resident Dune head. It was me, because I remember. I don't know if you have this audio, and I'm not gonna. Alexis, Soto, do your job. Actually, do your fucking job for once, and go through the archives and find it, because it's there somewhere. In podcasts long ago, we talked about what film series or whatever that's never been adapted that you would love to see adapted. And I remember my answer being like, all I can think about is Dune. Like, that's the only real answer I can think of. Like, this is years ago. I was like, Dune would make an incredible adaptation. And yes, I know they had the film and with the 1980s. That doesn't count. And of course, I know they had the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries. That doesn't count. Talking about modern, big budgeted adaptation. And just a few years later, Denis Villeneuve came forward and did the first one, and now he did this one. And I gotta say, it's pretty damn incredible. I think it's so good. Like, it's really good. A lot of people were making Two Towers comparisons, Empire Strikes Back comparisons, and it's like, are they getting a little?
Yeah, I can understand Empire Strikes Back because it's sci-fi, but I don't like comparing it to Two Towers just because fantasy and sci-fi are just so completely different things. And
I mean, we could have a whole debate on that right now, because I disagree. Okay. I think Star Wars has way more in common with something like, I don't know, the Dark Crystal, fucking The Princess Bride. To me, Star Wars is far more of fantasy than it ever was science fiction. It is space fantasy.
Yeah.
There's no science in it at all. Whereas something like Dune is it's a lot harder sci-fi.
Oh yeah.
For sure. But it's also this great mythic tale. That yes, internet commentators lives to subvert your expectations. Because it literally is like an inverse of the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Where it's not necessarily an inverse, it's just like it's like, here's the hero's journey, but
it manipulates the hero's journey, basically, is what the Bene Gesserit kind of did in this situation. Well, Paul took advantage of in this situation.
Yeah. It is to Star Wars what Homelander is to, like, Superman, basically. And yeah. But no, I do. To me, the only comparisons are that it's like this big, massive blockbuster filmmaking, and just kind of exemplifies why you go to the movies, what cinema is all about. Like other trilogies that people don't talk about, because a lot of people like the first movies but don't like the next two, but I'm not one of them. I love the whole shebang. I would throw out is also like The Matrix or the Pirates films. You know what I mean? Those first three.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what it is. It's just like, it encapsulates what it means to experience incredible, big, epic filmmaking. And this film definitely encapsulates that.
For sure.
It's actually really funny thinking about what would have happened if they never made the second part. Because I love the first, and I'm sure you do too, Dune Part 1. But like, everything in here, this is the movie where really everything happens, and it's executed so amazingly well. The idea that if the only thing that exists is Dune Part 1 is so crazy to me.
No, yeah, for sure. I think it was a big gamble for the studios too, even making this one,
Mhm.
especially because the first one, I don't think it was a bomb, but it wasn't like as big of a success that they wanted it to be. Granted, they put it on streaming service, I think, the same day as it came out
But
in
see,
theaters.
this is why the old Warner Brothers is so important.
Mm.
Uh, because like I've said before, look at the movies they've made with Dune, with Barbie, even Wonka, which is uh, a little bit more mainstream movie filmmaking. There's real opportunities to make something really fun and unique, and even though it's mainstream, and I think audiences really respond to that. And with Disney, that just doesn't exist anymore, like at all.
Mm-hmm.
Even something like like I said, the Pirates films, right? Like those are one of them. Those Pirates movies, especially getting to the sequels, they're weird.
Mm-hmm.
They're violent. They're sexual.
Yeah.
It's a lot of shit that just you can't imagine them making anything like that, even close. They keep talking about like, oh, we might be making, another Pirates film, and it's like, I'm so tired of they're like, oh, well, you have to have what's his name, Johnny Depp, and it's like Johnny Depp wasn't the magic sauce.
Mm-hmm.
It was Gore Verbinski. Unless you're bringing Gore Verbinski back, that shit ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
But that's cool because you see it in these other studios, Warner Brothers. Let's see how long it lasts. Filmmaking in mainstream films, and it's awesome. Again, and I think people really respond to it. Yeah. Oh, I was gonna ask you, have you finished the book?
No, I am.
Where are you at? Put that shit up.
Like,
oh my god, you're not even trying.
Dude, I know. I am in the part where, and this is in the first part of the movie, so it's not spoiler. But I'm in the part where Paul kills Janice.
Oh, Janice.
Yeah. So literally, like, I am right there. I'm so close to the end of the first part of the movie.
This is only the beginning.
Yeah, literally, for sure. But yeah, and I mean, I keep saying this over and over again, but like, I just love the writing in this.
Isn't it great? It's so compelling.
For sure.
Barely anything will be going on, but just the way he writes it's so compelling. Just a regular conversation can come off.
Yeah, I absolutely love the conversation between Jessica and Stilgar when they first met, and like Stilgar is basically the both of them just kind of like trying to come up with like a stalemate of sorts in their situation. Mm-hmm. Like obviously she doesn't want to like fight these people or anything like that, and he's trying to like assess the situation. Stilgar's trying to assess the situation and be like, can she like be good for the people here? Like if she joins us,
basically,
can it be good?
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so it's just a really interesting moment between the two of them. And I said this before again many times, but like, yeah, the writing in this is just absolutely fantastic. A lot of the times when I'm reading a book, I'm like hovering over the words. I'm just kind of like getting bits and pieces, going, okay, this is the situation, cool, let's keep going. This one though, I am hanging on to every single word.
Well, what's interesting, and I definitely felt this after part 2, there is a universe where you could have split the book into 3 parts and had enough material to do it. Mm-hmm. Because especially part 1, because that's what you've read so far. Mm-hmm. There's certain things that I think are so cool and somewhat integral that I think could exist. Again, man, see, this would work if Denny believed in extended cuts, but he doesn't.
Oh, like, dude, for real, like, seriously, like, if for people listening, like, if you've seen both movies, like, this is the extended version of the movies.
Yeah,
like, you really get so much more, and I kind of wish we would have gotten like almost every single second of this book in movie form. But I mean,
there's things I know he shot in the first one where I'm like, oh my god, like this would kill in an extended cut. One of my favorite parts of the first part of the book is the conversation between Dr. Yue and Lady Jessica, where he's trying his hardest to hide the fact that he is the traitor, and she knows he's lying due to her Bene Gesserit training, but she also knows that his wife is basically captured or dead. So like the way that he's acting kind of covers up for that. But it's still sort of like this interesting, like he's doing everything in his power to escape her sight, but she's reading him so easily. But it's also, it just gives insight to his pain and why he would betray them. Because the betrayal isn't played that big of a deal in the movie because you never really get to know Dr. Yue. He's the character you get to know the least. So then when he betrays them, it's kind of like, oh, okay, I guess the doctor did it. But in the book, he's betraying them from the beginning, but you also learn so much about him and like the pain that he's going through that would cause him to do that betrayal. And and
it's also just interesting the way everyone else knows there's someone going to betray them, and like in their thought process of like how they're gonna go about this situation is so fucking interesting, especially with the Duke, with him being like, I know it's not Jessica, I know it's not this person, but I have to make someone think that it's Jessica.
See, that's what's so interesting, because in the book all the outcomes are spelled out for you. Like basically the first sentence or the first page is literally Princess Irulan talking about Muad'Dib Paul Atreides, leader of the known universe, and his home Arrakis. You know where this all ends up. And then even once you get into the actual story, everyone knows that they're being betrayed. Everyone knows that going to Arrakis is a trap. So all it is maneuvering. And everyone is suspicious of Lady Jessica. Again, this isn't in the movie either. Like they all, because she's Bene Gesserit, they think she's the traitor. And Dr. Yue, who literally received royal training, that's why he has the dot on his head, which literally means they are unable to betray you. So no one suspects him.
Wow.
and then even that one of my favorite scenes in the book also that just isn't in the movie is when they have like a sort of meeting for like the local government. They have that like royal dinner. Right? With
I can't remember the names, but it's just basically everyone who has like a certain job to do within that planet, like keeping the water and all that.
And like they had a, I guess, Harkonnen tradition of just like throwing out the water out the windows. So all the Fremen are like dying to get the water and stuff. And because that's how they treated them that way. And then like they're every little word in conversation is a chess move. But none of us there. And I understand it's an adaptation. And by the way, that's what I love about part 2. Because Denny talks a lot about like, if you see his interviews, he's like, I want to just, it's not me, it's not my movie, right? I just want to translate the book onto film. It's about capturing that story and just translating it. But he makes vital changes from the book because he's still a filmmaker at the end of the day. And he understands these changes will make the story flow better in a film. And it's more about capturing the essence of the story than the exact beat for beat with everything.
All the scenes that we were talking about, like I understand 100% why it was taken out, because it really isn't important for the plot. The whole
not really,
like the whole thing of the Duke having to make Jessica the prime suspect for everyone else to trick everyone else. It's not really needed.
It goes nowhere. Basically,
it goes nowhere. It's just interesting to get inside the mind of the Duke and seeing like what he has to do as a leader to like make sure everyone's like on the same page, or like what he has to do to like protect himself and his family.
Yeah.
But also, you mentioned the whole tradition of throwing out the water out the window. Again, in his mindset, he's just like, this is fucking disgusting. We're not doing this anymore. He stops it, and it's always so cool. Actually,
but there are moments that kind of take that place in the movie, like with the palm trees, and you sort of get a sense of Duke Leto Atreides when he says like, leave the spice, save the men, during the spice harvester scene. So it's like he makes cuts that make sense because you're just basically you're hitting double beats. Like, no, you've already made the audience aware of this. Like, this flows better if we remove this and just sort of move this around.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely noticed that as I'm reading through. It's just like, this is great. Yeah, but it doesn't need to be in the movie.
Again, that's why it's like it's an adaptation, right? And that's what I love, because you can say the same thing with the Lord of the Rings films. I adore the Lord of the Rings films; they're fantastic. But guess what? The theatrical cuts are superior to the extended cuts.
Oh, that's a big argument, and I disagree.
I'm telling you. There is a reason they invented, what do you call them? Editors. Because some shit just needs to get cut down. And I remember the first time I saw the extended cuts, I'm like, this is cool. But as a film, as an experience, it's cool to experience to me like once. But if I'm going to rewatch, I'm rewatching the theatrical because it flows so well. Like it's designed to flow well. But yeah, as far as adaptations go, how much do you know about the book for part 2? Because this is the stuff that I really want to talk about.
I mean, actually,
because I can sit here and be like, the performances were amazing. We know, visually it's amazing. We know, the costumes actually were fucking amazing. The costumes are amazing. We know, like, it's like we know. But there's some cool stuff that he changed in the second part. I don't know how much you know of the changes.
I don't mind the spoilers. Yeah, especially with the book. It's taking me forever, and it's like you talking about
it's a big book.
Yeah, but also like this is why I love the book so much. Like, you talking about it, I know I'm gonna get spoiled, but like actually reading those moments, it's still gonna be a different experience because of how good the writing is.
That's kind of also the point of the story, though, right? Like it's like how it ends. It's kind of not about that. It's about this inevitability, destiny, the political maneuverings, history, how history is remembered, kind of. Because that's always so interesting to me too. The difference between how we read about history and remember things versus what actually went down. And that's why I always really love the Princess Irulan introductions to most chapters, where it's her just kind of like talking like basically like a history teaching.
Yeah.
Like, yes, Muad'Dib, and then and then you look at what actually happened. It's so cool. But yeah, okay, with part two, I think there was like at least I can't remember how many years, but it was a year's jump, 2 to 5 years, something like that. Once Jessica takes the blue Gatorade, they jump forward. Aaliyah is born, and she's born like a full adult human, basically. Beyond a full adult human. She is a Bene Gesserit mother. And it's the creepiest thing in the world because she's like a small child, but with the mind of thousands of generations of Bene Gesserit mothers. So she walks around creeping the shit out of everyone. Paul and Shawnee did have a child, Leto II, who ends up dying when they attack the Sietches, which that pushes him to, drink the water of life, become such and such. And also the biggest change is Chani, because Chani, she was ride or die from the beginning. Like, there's really no conflict at all. with her character.
Actually, I noticed it when on Paul's fight with Janice. She literally tells him like, okay, here's what you need to do to stop him. Basically, she literally tells him like, these are his weaknesses and these are his strengths. So like, be careful. And it's like, wait, you're helping Paul like right now to like help kill one of your own? That's kind of crazy.
Also, because he killed Janice, Paul gets his wife. They never do anything, but that was Fremen tradition.
Okay.
But he just kind of keeps her as a friend,
Yeah.
But yeah, there's all those interesting details that really make the world and reading the book and getting into everything really fucking interesting. But if you're gonna do a movie, it's like you gotta streamline it. And because so much of the story is internal dialogue, you have to find ways to get across what you're trying to say with the film and the story in a visual medium.
No, yeah.
In a film.
I mean, that's why it was a great idea to use Jessica's pregnancy as like a way to show us how much time has passed and everything.
Yeah.
So like, that's great.
And then also using Chani as sort of this catalyst for the conflict within him, right? That change in Chani. Also because, you need drama in film. Yeah. You just do, If it was literally just they're together and it's perfect and there's no issues, it is less interesting, right? But hers sort of representing this not literal resistance, but a sort of metaphorical resistance to what he represents is really, really good. But I'm so interested now on how he's going to tackle Dune Messiah, because the way things end is pretty different than the way Dune ended. In Dune, there's a reason why they say he who controls the spice controls the universe, because that's what happened.
Yeah.
he got the spice, and everyone in the universe was like, all right, okay, you're in charge. Don't do anything crazy. Put the gun down, leave the spice alone, like his ascension was instant. Whereas in the movie, the great houses are like, nah, fuck you. Like, we're not recognizing this. This is ridiculous. And then that's what starts the great holy war.
The Clone
Whereas in the Clone Wars, has begun. The Clone Wars has. Whereas in the book, the whole universe immediately, just, okay, you're in charge. But the religious fervor he's built up just spreads across the universe, and a jihad, they call it a jihad. They just start killing people, I guess, because religion,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I for sure got the religious aspects of the second part of the movie, which is like insane, which is like the craziest part in the whole thing. I mean,
I was actually so surprised how much they leaned into it for such a mainstream film. That's what I was saying, because they kind of touch on it in part one, but it's more about just sort of getting into the world. And here immediately it's like, those are the fundamentalists. They think you're the Messiah, and just right into the whole religious aspect of it. I was like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah, but those are also my favorite moments, because like,
oh hell yeah,
you get parts of the prophecy and everything, and you just kind of like, but this is a lie. But then it actually happens, and you just have to, you literally have to question it, like, is this real? Like, I don't know what to think here. It's clearly a lie. The Bene Gesserit like made this shit up, but it's all coming true.
They made this shit up also because they could look into the future. They have certain abilities.
Well, actually, that's actually one thing Ale wanted me to ask you about. Like, how the fuck do the Bene Gesserit have so much power in this universe? Like, how is it that the Emperor just 100% trusts the Reverend Mother on his planet?
They do play a little bit more like spies. like their objectives are less understood and known throughout the universe. Like we know them because we're watching the story, but the characters within the universe aren't very privy to it. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's like not everyone's walking around going like, oh yes, they're trying to create the Quetzalcoatl. Like no, like,
yeah,
that's internal secrets basically. And the reason why they sort of let them run and do whatever the fuck they want is because they're just very powerful organization, right?
Okay.
Their truths, they're witches. They can see into the future. They can grant you a lot of things because they're good advisors. They provide you with concubines, you know, and of course they do this on purpose to get their DNA, and they sort of intertwine the houses, and it's all part of their secret plan. But on the outside, it seems like they're just these almost like genies, you know, like if you rubbed a what do you call it, a lamp, and got a genie, and they're like, hey, I can give you wishes, I can help you out, you'd be like, oh cool, sweet, stick around. But secretly he's part of an organization of genies trying to do whatever, you know. That's kind of what that's why people accept them, right? Power recognizes power.
Okay.
Well, that's another thing. The Spacing Guild wasn't in the films either. That's crazy to me. Do you know the Spacing Guild? Actually, they were in the first movie. They were during the changing of the guard, or changing of the hand.
Oh, okay. The one lady.
No. Because they were like, you know, oh, here to recognize it is members of the Imperial Court, members of the Spacing Guild, and they showed them in like white. You couldn't see their faces, but they're covered in like white and
just like a helmet, almost sort of.
Yeah.
Face. Oh, okay, that was them.
And then he says, and a member of the Bene Gesserit, right? Because those are the big players, right? You got the Imperial Court, the Spacing Guild, and the Bene Gesserit. And the Spacing Guild is literally just the guild of navigators. They're people that have been taking so much spice for so long, they've been morphed into looking like these other. They're fucked up. They look very different. Okay. Some Cronenberg looking creatures, because they've taken so much spice, and they use the spice to look into the future and avoid all
like asteroids,
suns, whatever, and make sure that so that people are able to safely, you know, fly across the galaxy, basically, without hitting anything, and being able. They use their precog abilities to do that. Cool. And in the 1980s film, what's his name? The director, he went all out with it. He had them in like this massive. It was basically like this giant, like fucked up creature in this tank that they would wield everywhere, wheel it in and wheel it out, and they would sort of communicate, of course, through telepathy and stuff. I think they'll definitely, you'll see them more in Dune Messiah.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, and then of course Mentats, which they did show in part 1 too, but they were kind of missing from part 2, which are the human computers.
Yeah, actually, I was kind of sad about the guy who played Hawat. He actually filmed scenes in the second part, but were completely cut, which was a big surprise for me, especially when I got into the part of the book where he's still alive.
But again, a lot of. This is why I'm saying I feel like his changes are going to lead to more changes, because he streamlined part 1 and made it so that not everyone hated Lady Jessica, because it seems like all of what do you call it, Duke Leto's Imperial Court kind of hate her and fear her and don't trust her, including Thurfer Hawat and what's his name? Josh Brolin's character.
Oh. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. Fuck.
Okay. Well, I forgot.
Yeah,
But
Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin, like they all think that she is the traitor, basically. And that really plays into his character in the second part of the book, because if you remember, Polka Dot Man, who played his Mentat, the Harkonnen's Mentat in part 1, he dies.
Yeah.
And so what happened was he takes the Atreides Mentat and he makes him his. So he's basically by his side. Well, you read to that part, right?
Yeah, basically they really want him because he's like very, very valuable.
Yeah, he's one of the best mentats out there. So they just take him for one of their own. And he kind of plays along long enough because he thinks that it was Lady Jessica that betrayed them, and he kind of wants revenge. But then in the end, he realizes it wasn't her, and he ends up, dying to protect Paul. And, it's this whole thing where, like, it kind of doesn't, because you don't set up that suspicion of her, it doesn't really go anywhere, So I kind of makes sense why they just didn't have him at all. And again, the big changes that they're making for Dune, that they did make for the end of Dune Part 2, where it literally ends with Chani turning her back on him, which is, again, most of Dune Messiah, spoilers, is him and her trying to get pregnant. Like, that's a big, big part. I was telling Kyle and Alexis, it basically turns into Revenge of the Sith, where they're trying to have kids, and they eventually do, twins, in fact. But Paul sees visions of her death in childbirth, so he's kind of okay with avoiding her getting pregnant, but she really wants to get pregnant, and it's a whole thing. And then everyone actually wants him to have kids because he needs to get those descendants going, the whole house royal line, and Irulan is trying to get in there and get pregnant, so she can continue. Yeah, so it's a whole thing. But if it's like, I really, really doubt we're gonna start with Dune Messiah with them just back together again already, because
I mean, I haven't read Dune Messiah at all, obviously.
Yeah.
But I mean, my thoughts would just be like, obviously doing some sort of time skip.
But even with the time war, like, I definitely believe there'll be a time skip. But even with the time skip, I think that would be ridiculous. It just starts and they're just together again, and then it's like, what? Like, no, that's like, he very deliberately left that movie with her walking away from him. So whenever we come back to it, I think that's where they'll be, basically. And then also the Holy War. It's like, let's go.
Yeah.
They very much made it so that they didn't immediately kneel to him, so that forces them into war. So
it's gonna be real interesting. If it already leads to like them killing people in his name and all that, the whole thing in the first part, what is it like? What was the thing that he said? A war in my name or something like that. I think it's just basically what's gonna lead to. But like, I'm sure we're just gonna get like get told of like all the death that's happening because of this holy war and all that. But yeah, I think ultimately it's just gonna end with the whole, what is it, green paradise for Arrakis, which I mean, I'm all for, honestly. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the movie though, we haven't talked about it much. But what did you think about, let's go with Austin Butler's performance as with FAIRE. I don't know how to say that.
FAIRE, yeah. Feud Rotha.
Was it Feud Rotha? Or
I think it's Feud Rotha.
I don't know.
Let me look it up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was. I feel like he was definitely the standout for audiences just because honestly, in the trailers, I didn't even know that was him. I literally thought that was the guy who played it.
I mean, yeah, Fade Rotha, but it's Feyd, Fade Rotha Harkonnen.
Okay.
Well, isn't the guy that played isn't he a Skarsgård?
He is. And
so
maybe
that does make sense.
Maybe I just got the names confused and I thought that was him the whole time, and I don't know. It was weird. But yeah, once I finally saw, like, I literally didn't know it was him until I saw interviews and he was in them. I'm like, who is he? Oh shit, he's that guy. Oh my god. But yeah. Was there anything in the movie that like disappointed you? Because mine was just Dave Bautista being underutilized. I mean, granted, his character is kind of useless in the book so far as I've seen, but
yeah, he's kind of just. There's a lot of characters that are interesting, but they're kind of just there. You know what I mean? And Raban is kind of one of them.
Yeah.
But I like the way Bautista played him, where a lot of people are like, "Oh, he just screams the whole time." Yes, but you could tell that those screams come from a place of fear, right? Like he's just bad at his job, and he is losing his grip on everything, and that he knows what failure means for him, and that terrifies him. You know, and so the way he lashes out, I think, works and makes sense. And I really love a big, awesome, beautiful film filled with amazing stars, where even you have like the bit characters that are just there for a few minutes and they're played by an amazing actor or actress, and you're like, oh, that's so cool, right? Like I love Lea Seydoux as an actress, and she's there for a really small, moment within the movie, but because she's such an amazing actress, it's that much better, and it's really cool to be like, oh, that's her. And I'm sure that's the way people acted when they saw who played Aaliyah, and it's like, oh, that's cool, that's her, even if she's there for 10 seconds.
Yeah,
I don't know, I just really like that.
Well, I mean, same thing with the Emperor too.
Yes, and that's another one where some people I think were disappointed. I'm like, no, I think he played it perfect. I loved it. Because he comes off as an old man past his prime, but you could tell was once a great ruler mentally on top of it, in front of everyone. You understand why he was the emperor, but you also understand why it's all slipping away from him now. But I like how he's also played like a regular dude. It's not Star Wars. It's not the literal devil that plays the emperor, yeah, I will kill everyone. It's not that. It's just, Harkonnen. Let's deal with this prophet. It's that kind of shit. And I think that's really cool because that's more true to life, You see, and it's not that Dune is true to life, but it takes some more less black and white approach to its politics. I don't want to say a quote unquote real world. Obviously, it's not real world stuff. But yeah, it's more of looking at these great leaders that control, the universe and these houses. And it's more of like, these are people and they're schemers, and that's where they're coming from, not a literal evil from the beginning of time who's here to spread darkness throughout the universe. No, it's they're looking to conquer. Why? For the reason anyone looks to conquer, money, sex,
everything,
power, that's why. So it's real interesting.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think anything I was disappointed in. Well, I did kind of talk about how it could be longer, right? Like you could add so much in. At first, it's weird. There's certain scenes where I'm like, man, the action is really stripped back. but the action is constant in the film. And even in places where I didn't think you would even need to necessarily add an action beat, Denis adds one, and I think that's that thing where he kind of learned the pacing. And there's things in there, sort of like when Raban goes into the desert and is terrified by seeing Paul in his full, Muad'Dib garb.
Yeah.
And Fremen jumps onto the ornithopter, trying to kill him. And, that religious fervor of like, for Muad'Dib, But there's added moments like that. But then the final fight, it's massive and it's incredible. But it's over very quickly. And again, some people might look at that and be like, "Oh, I wish they would have, expanded it, get a little more Lord of the Rings and have it like longer."
Yeah.
But thematically, it fits so well because it's not meant to be the great, massive battle that goes on forever. It's basically a mirror of what happened to House Atreides. It's they are cut down with one fell swoop, right?
But also like the battle itself, it is kind of sad because as epic as it fucking looks, especially with the fucking worms and all that.
Oh yeah,
it is kind of sad that like Paul just manipulated these people now into like fighting for him and everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's not supposed to be this epic thing, and I think that's why the fight between Paul and Fade is actually like the best part, like the best fight scene, is because that moment there, that is for him. He's taking on the battle himself, and that is more personal to him in the sense than anything else.
Well, I think nothing exemplifies that better than when Josh Brolin kills Raban, and they're just massacring the Emperor's men. And you see them throw their bodies on a pile and burn them, right? Which is the exact image you saw in the beginning of what the Harkonnens did to the Atreides. And it's a complete juxtaposition, a complete 180 from the Fremen in the beginning, where the idea of burning body, hell no. They would take their water, right? Yeah. That was their way. That was their purpose. And it's just a complete 180 from, worshiping and caring about the water to then burning these bodies in the same manner that the Harkonnens did. So yeah, that what it's trying to get across thematically absolutely works in that way. Like, I agree. And then, Fade Rotha is such a great character because he's a freak, he's this like sadistic sexual freak. I love how people point out in the final third, he's not like snarling or angry or just acting like a big bad in front of Paul. He's like turned on by everything Paul does. When he uses the voice, he gives a face like, ooh, like I like that, know. That's sort of his approach to everything. And that's really cool. And then, like, again, this is a filmmaking symbolism 101 for babies. But when you're introduced to him, when he walks out into the arena, it like opens like a vagina. The doors.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, like the shadows, like,
okay,
it's like right there. Man, everything on Gady Prime. That's why I'm really hoping we see more places outside of the planet Arrakis, because man, he has such a knack for creating alien worlds that feel truly alien. And I'd love to see more of that.
For sure. I mean, if he gets this creative with one planet, like, what the fuck can you do with the rest of them? Also, I just love the planet in general. The famous planet. I was just kind of like, why is it in black and white? I never questioned it why it wasn't black and white. I just love that it was. Like, I didn't care. It looked
beautiful, yeah,
for sure. And especially like just how he got to get creative, like really make the world feel lived in, because it really would have just felt empty in the sense of had it because it was black and white. But no, it felt really lived in. I loved when during the celebration the fireworks just looked like
the
and everything.
ink blot. Oh, it's so cool. Yeah.
And then I didn't know this until like I was listening to podcasts, but basically they fucked up their world so much that like it's just that's why it's in black and white. It's kind of like they fucked it up so much that the light within their world just makes everything black and white, or supposedly something like that. I don't know if I got it wrong.
Well, it's in the movie they say it's due to the black sun. But the Harkonnens themselves are like these overly industrialized, you know, they don't give a fuck about the planet whatsoever. Like nothing grows on Gedi Prime. It's this massive industrialized nightmare. And the black and white, I think, is somewhat to that, but it's mostly because of the black sun.
Oh, okay.
But it also perfectly represents the Harkonnens as this. They are these black and white, you know, like monster creatures.
That just
and then I love how it sort of, it kind of gives you into an idea of why they are the way they are, with like the pale white skin, with like where they shave off their heads, and visually like the things they wear. You know, like how would culture be influenced if you only saw in black and white? You know, the black teeth thing that they do. So fucking cool.
No, yeah, for sure. Oh boy. I mean, what else happened that we haven't talked about? I feel like everything else was the same.
I love what's her name? Let me pull it up. Rebecca Ferguson. Yeah. I think she's a real MVP. I think she's amazing as Lady Jessica in this one. Like I said, I was a little disappointed that you don't see the little toddler running around being creepy. But you know what? We've seen a lot of little girl creepy shit in movies. Look at any horror movie, right? You know what we haven't much seen? Fucking evil witch speaking to her fetus. You know, planning to bring down a whole planet.
Yeah.
Like, that's really creepy. That was really cool. But she's like, yes, we'll start with the weak ones in the south. You know, and then she's like looking at them. I was like, oh man, that's so cool.
Yeah. Also, I love that bit though when she's saying how the water of life is created, but like as soon as she sees it like happening, she goes quiet. Like looking down at her baby. I'm just like, what the fuck?
It's so, oh my god, it's so weird.
No, yeah, she was definitely a standout. Just basically just those stares that she would give off, like in the distance. I almost wish we didn't like hear her thoughts, just because like it would have made it that much creepier. Like, what the fuck are you thinking about? You know?
Yeah, like it's all. It feels like she's talking to herself, but you know that she's not. Like there's another voice out
for
there.
Sure.
Well, let me ask you: have you seen these movies back to back, part 1 and part 2?
Yeah. I mean, I never got to the very end of the Dune part 1, but I basically saw it back to back.
How was that? How does it feel? Is
really,
it a better experience, or does it come together in a way? You know?
I think it does for sure. Especially just, I mean, transitioning to the next part of it is just, it's really, really interesting. I'm actually very interested because my dad hasn't seen the movies yet. I don't know if he's gonna get into it though. He's not.
I would almost just show him part 2.
Really?
With dads, you gotta do what you can.
Yeah,
because they'll get bored.
That's true, but I don't know, because like he's into sci-fi, but I don't know if he's gonna be into this kind of sci-fi. Like I said, his favorite movie ever is Terminator 2, but he gets very bored of Lord of the Rings, and so it's like, can he like this?
There's cool shit constantly happening in part 2. That's the thing. Like that first action scene, where the Harkonnen ship is looking for them.
They all like float down to the dirt.
Yeah, it's like not everything is the most action packed, but it's just fucking cool, you know. And it's really interesting to look at. It's just like the red hot like desert as it's the sun setting, and they're like floating up. And you know, the tense scene of it when they're, you know, bringing down spice harvesters. and the tense moment where they have to like make it to the other leg as it's moving behind the shadow, or else they get fucking shot. There's just the first time he rides the sandworms.
Yes.
There's just constantly something, and then eventually you get to Getty Prime, and everything on there is just fucking awesome. Really cool. I love the announcer. When they're doing the whole like gladiator thing, like the most like deep voice you've ever heard.
I think I found so funny in that gladiator fight as he's walking like in the middle of the stage, I guess in the background you see these like black creatures, but they're blended in the background, so you don't see them for a quick second, and then once they get into the light more, then that's when you notice them. And I just went, "What the fuck is that thing?" Like they just really come out of nowhere,
coming out of the walls.
Yeah, I honestly thought that's what was happening, but no, they were just there the entire time.
There's like horned guards, or like. So it's like with part one, I love part one, but it eases you into everything, you know. And if you're not coming in like hot on it, you could get turned off. Whereas with part two, it's like I said, that the pacing is just, there's a constant cool shit. Constant. Even stuff like drinking the water of life. Like there's such cool imagery where like they like show the fetus and like the blue, you know,
basically absorbing it,
and it's just like, what the fuck? I don't know. It's
so
one of mine.
So for you never felt the length of it or anything like that? Because I for sure did. It's not a complaint of mine, but like I for sure felt the length of it, especially like in the moment when we see Fade's planet. Honestly,
well, you know what I noticed? I thought that they would be more cutting back and forth between characters, but it sort of starts off with Paul, and you stay with them for a long time.
I mean,
most of the movie is just learning the ways of the Fremen. That like first half.
Yeah, it's a movie in itself, basically. That whole moment, especially with him and Chani falling in love. And all that.
And I thought they would cut more in between, like, you know, the Fremen, Getty Prime stuff. You know, maybe the Bene Gesserit, the Emperors. But it's like the first movie, it's all Fremen stuff, and then they cut to Getty Prime, and then they do like everything with Getty Prime, and then they look at more stuff with the Bene Gesserit stuff. So it's a little bit more contained rather than like back and forth.
No, yeah, and it would have been interesting too, because like, I think it would have been interesting to see them, like, you know, you see them falling in love and everything, but then when you cut to the other characters, it's almost like this constant thing of like something's gonna tear them apart or something like that. You know, you could have really build it up to something more. Yeah.
So I can maybe see that for some people if they're looking for more of that kind of structure, and then you can maybe start to feel the length. Maybe, you know, it's more. I think maybe you feel the length because a lot of it is just people going to do things, you know. And I think when it's that, you can sort of be like, oh wow, like we've been on this journey a while, you know. People are constantly coming and going. But like I said, I was with it the whole time. And even when I feel the length, if I'm with a movie, I'm fucking with it. Like, what was the last one? Killers of the Flower Moon long? Oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
For sure. But man, I was just with it the whole time, so I can't really say that I felt it. Like, cognitively, I know it's long, but in here, it can keep going.
Yeah, that's why it's kind of interesting for me, because I saw Killers too, and I never felt the length of it of that. I was in it every single second of it, but this one kind of was.
This one was a little more.
Yeah, maybe. So I mean, I don't know what it was exactly. Maybe it was
not everyone can be Scorsese. I'll tell you that right now.
True. But maybe it was that, just like that shift between a different planet, and I'm like, oh wait, we have other things going on. Okay, and then maybe that's just what hit me. For sure.
But no, I adored this film. I think it's fantastic. For all the doom and gloom of Hollywood, damn, can amazing blockbusters get made, in this day and age. Like the early 2000s, people talking about like Dune, the Batman, the Avatar films, like big blockbusters absolutely are being made and can be made and well made. And it makes me really excited that people are getting excited about them.
Yeah.
And showing up for them in movie theaters and pushing for them, and some other films that will technically cost more and fucking suck and look ugly and lame are failing. You know what I mean?
For sure.
It's like the balance the balances are being made. It's being made right, I guess you could say. Which makes me excited because hopefully more shit like that will be pursued in Hollywood and pushed forward.
I hope so too, especially for something coming up that was Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Looks pretty interesting. It has a lot.
Did you see the trailer?
I saw the trailer for it, and that one
it's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's a good trailer.
For sure.
I don't, how the movie's gonna go, I don't know. But yeah, those are other movies where it's like this could have been lame as shit, but it's like really really well made blockbusters.
For sure.
And can that continue the trend? The what do you call it? Trend? I hope so. Again, based off the trailer, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. And I'm also just keeping an eye on that one because the director for that movie is directing the Legend of Zelda movie, which is one that but it's Sony though.
If Sony sucks, they cannot make a movie to save their life. They are so lucky they got the what are they called? Those two guys.
Lord and Miller.
Lord and Miller. They're so lucky they have Lord and Miller, because if they didn't have them, they would have nothing.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see how Hollywood takes from this, But Marvel gets something from this.
And the Furiosa movie.
That is something else too.
George Miller. He's another Mad Max film.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. When you make them right, that's all we ask. People I don't think people hate blockbusters. I don't think people hate franchise movies. It's just how you make them.
Yeah.
Like every other genre of film, is it good? Is there heart and effort being put in? If yes, then it's like any other film. If it's great, it's great. So yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, that's the one thing too. Like what you mentioned, does it have heart and everything? And that's just gonna go a long way. That's the one thing I feel like studios just aren't understanding. It's like it's not about the weekend box office anymore, especially now. It's about like how is it going to last these next couple of months, and how is it going to last in the next 20 years or so? Because I definitely think people are gonna enjoy these two movies. Hopefully, we'll see how Messiah goes for a very long time. Because I know I mentioned, I was kind of disappointed that Bautista was underutilizing this, but people are gonna watch this movie and go, "Hey, that guy was kind of interesting," and not know that that's Dave Bautista, fucking guy from Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that. They're not gonna care how. They're not gonna see it as I did. So
you know what? This is also another interesting conversation. I kind of feel like we're getting back to the era of the movie star a little bit.
I've been hearing that too on like other people's podcasts. They're kind of like, people are gonna recognize like Chalamet and for sure Fade. What's his real name?
Austin Butler.
Austin Butler for sure. Because Austin Butler is Zendaya for sure.
I just think younger actors, these up and comers, are making better choices in the kind of shit they're in. You know what I mean? Like I said, get themselves an A24 film. And because think about it, with movie stars, what people want is that consistency, right? I think that's why Marvel became so popular. It's that consistency of like, oh, I enjoy Marvel movies. When the reason why people want to go out and see like a Leonardo DiCaprio movie is because it's not just that he's a good actor. There's plenty of good actors out there. It's that he's an actor that they know always chooses really good projects. They know if he's in a movie, it's probably going to be good. It's probably going to be a good film. And I think more of these younger actors are trying to do that, pick good projects. So I think that's it's lending to the idea of like, hey, maybe.
But then also, I think the advantage these young actors have though is they have more choices too, and not just like in choosing a good film, but like choosing a film that can really like help them out in their acting career and all that. Because I mean, this happened with who played the Batman,
Robert
Pattinson. Like he was just doing like one small movie after another, especially after Twilight. Just trying to like get his acting down.
But I think that's how Hollywood works now. Like you gotta put in you gotta make a movie that is gonna be loved, even if it's by a very small group, right? Let's say you're making a small indie and not a lot of people are gonna love it, or not a lot of people are gonna see it, but the people that do see it and love it, man, they're gonna love it, and they're really gonna cherish it and push for it, and you're really gonna stand out in their eyes. And you do enough movies like that, you grab enough attention, people are like, oh wow, they're in a lot of great movies, they're a really good actor, I want to get them on my movie project that's a little bit larger, right? I mean, again, that's kind of what happened with Timothy. What do people know Timothy for before this? If Wonka never came out, this would be all people really knew Timothy for. I mean, obviously we love Call Me by Your Name and stuff like that, and he's been in some other movies, but like, how many people have really seen Call Me by Your Name?
I still haven't seen it.
Well, there you fucking go.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that's the way it's working right now. But it's exciting. I think it's
for sure, especially for
as long as the studios don't collapse.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Any other thoughts about the movie?
I loved it. I wish I could go out and see it right now.
I know. I'm actually hoping to watch it this weekend again. We'll see.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. Cool. I don't know the script. That
you just
Alexis
end it by saying "fuck you, Alexis."
No. Well, anything else coming up, Ali and I will try to do Dune book for Turn to Page. I don't know when. I'm taking forever in this book. I'm still doing Quest Center stuff. I'm playing Sea of Stars. That's interesting. Have you heard of it?
I think I have, but I don't know.
It's
kind of the same thing.
Yeah, it's an RPG game and all that. It's very, very fun, and I've been loving the music. I've been listening to it over and over again. It's awesome. But yeah, I'm still trying to do that. But yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed that. Thank you so much for listening, and bye bye.